Good morning, or depending on when you're listening to this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and I was always told I had a voice for radio, so I've made a podcast all about the Pokémon trading card game. And you're listening to PTCG Radio. Now, some of you may be wondering why it is Wednesday, or it was Wednesday, and you didn't have a new PTCG Radio. This is going out late this week, and it's not because I hate you, and it's not because I'm bored of PTCG Radio. You may also notice that my YouTube channel has not been properly updated. And again, this is no hatred on my part from me to you. PTCG Radio will never die. I'd say it won't die. Of course it will one day. If no other reason, then sooner or later, I'll die. Which is a sad thought. It's okay, hopefully not for a while. And so it is not going to carry on forever. But for the time being, it is going to carry on strong, and it is going to carry on strong for a long time. I've been moving house, and those of you that have moved house in the past kind of few years will know that the biggest annoyance of moving house is having internet. Now, I did have internet yesterday, but not till the evening, by which point there's all kinds of problems with doing the research, finding out the information, getting the plan going, and unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, it wasn't working yesterday. It wasn't going to happen. I am back. So, what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about Phantom Forces and how that affects the format. Now, I've been to my second regional this past weekend, and this one was the first tournament in the UK where Phantom Forces was legal, and where there's a bunch of, I think, cities and such going on in the US at the moment. This was at least the first regional that I'm aware of, and certainly one of the, if not the biggest tournament so far, which has had Phantom Forces legal. What that has allowed me to do is get a really good bead on what the format's looking like at the moment, give you some impressions. Now, like we always see at regionals, these have to be taken with a pinch of salt. The first couple tournaments are tournaments where we're feeling stuff out. We don't know what's good. People are playing what they're familiar with and trying out new ideas and all of that. But I think I've got a fairly good bead on the format, at least as it stands right now. So hopefully we'll be able to run forward with that. Now, if it does sound a little bit different, bear in mind, new house, new recording space. It seems a bit more echoey in here, so as always, let us know that kind of stuff. So starting off this week with the news, we've had some new cards revealed, some of which are incredibly exciting and some of which are slightly less exciting is a polite way to put it. We have a Crawdaunt which has been revealed. This is from the Primal Clash, our February set, or at least it will be. And it's got an attack for a dark and a double colourless Crab Hammer for 60 damage. Meh. It does, however, have a very interesting ability, Wild Pincers. When you play this Pokemon from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon, you may discard an energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. Now, this is energy, not special energy, so it's got, the only kind of automatic stuff we have at the moment is Xerosic, which is special energy, Enhanced Hammer, which is special energy, and we have, Team Flare Grunt, which is an automatic any energy removal, but of course takes up your supporter for the turn. I'm going to tell you more about my Crushing Hammer adventures shortly, but this could be quite useful. The problem is it takes up an awful lot of space. With a 1-1 Crawdaunt line, you could just fit in 2 Crushing Hammers, which would, on average, give you the same effect. Of course, this works under Trainer Lock, though not Ability Lock, but it takes up a bench space. It's just not happening, I'm afraid, ladies and gentlemen. We've also seen a bunch of new cards which are going to have ancient traits. There is a Bunnelby and a Medicham with Torchic's Omega Multi-Strike. There's an Electrike with Omega Barrier. Gorbis with Alpha Growth, and a Tentacle with an currently unreadable ancient trait, although it's an alpha ancient trait. So, more ancient traits are coming. It will be interesting to see how they work, but we're not going to have any information on them for a little while. What has been leaked, somebody actually got hold of some English language cards from that set, which is weird given that it's our February set. This is strange, shall we say. Now, there is a Nidoqueen that's got some cool stuff. It's got an ancient trait, but we can't actually see what it is, unfortunately. So it's weird that these English language cards have already got out there. Don't quite know who's got them or how they got them, but they have leaked 3 new EXs. So we're going to have a quick look at them now to see how they are. They're not massively exciting, but we'll have a chat and see if we can not make something of them. There is a Wailord EX, 250 HP. Weakness to grass, but it's still going to take a G-booster to KO this bad boy. Genesec's Megalocannon with a Muscle Band will only do 240 to him. Good news, Beast. Bad news, I suppose good news, Water Veil. Whenever you attach an energy card from your hand to this Pokemon, remove all special conditions from it. That's pretty good. So essentially, it's got 250 HP. It's as good as immune to special conditions. I mean, it's not. If you poison it, if your opponent poisons it, it's still going to take damage between turns, but you can get rid of it straight away by attaching a water energy. Bad news, 5 water energy, 120 damage, and you put yourself to sleep. Now, of course, next turn you attach a water energy and it wakes up again, but essentially you want it active when you're attacking. So, I mean, I suppose you could use Super Potion, discard 1 energy, and then put it back to get rid of the special condition, but if I've already got 5 energy on the Pokemon, I'm not really going to want it. I'm not really going to want to be putting more energy on there. Now, the other thing you've got to bear in mind with this, ladies and gentlemen, is that although it's got a frankly ridiculous... This is a regular EX, not a Mega EX, and it's got more HP than any Mega EX we've seen so far. Which does fit, of course. Wailord has always had a huge amount of HP for all the cards it's had in the format. I believe there was a 200 HP Wailord released not too long ago. Well, comparatively, a couple of years ago now. But it's doing 120 damage, so it's taking longer to get KOs, and that really gets around. Its higher HP is pretty much entirely negated by the fact that it's taking longer to actually take prizes. So I'm not a huge fan of this card. It's cool as a novelty, and the art on the full art, which is the only one we've seen, is pretty cool. Head over to pokebeach.com if you want to see a picture of the artwork. But it's not going to do too much for you. Reshiram and Zekrom can hit for 120 for free energy, and I would argue they've got better typing. Now there's a Trevenant EX, 180 HP, it's Grass, Trevenant of course being Psychic and Grass, so we've had a Psychic Trevenant, now we have, or Ghost and Grass or whatever it is, I don't know, I mostly do TCG nowadays. We've had the Psychic one, so we need a Grass one, and it's a Trevenant EX. For 1 Grass energy, 20 damage, the defending Pokemon can't retreat during your opponent's next turn. And this has some interesting uses. For instance, my good friend Tommy Roberts was playing a weird Virizion Genesect Lugia Snorlax hybrid at Regionals this past weekend, and he was winning games against something like Donphan by bringing up a Horlicher using Genesect, and then just leaving it there with a Snorlax. Donphan decks play 1 or 2 switches, they rely on retreating with Floatstone and stuff like that. Snorlax blocks retreating, Horlicher cannot attack non-EX Pokemon. So he actually won the game because his opponent was forced to just scoop because Snorlax just sits there. And the Horlicher can't retreat. And you can do a similar thing with Trevenant. Hit for 20, they can't retreat. Hit for 20, they can't retreat. You would combo this with something like Pokemon Catcher or Lysandre or something like that. Pull something active that wouldn't be able to switch out, and then just kill it very slowly, not letting it retreat. It's not a great thing, to be honest. And of course it's weak to fire, which means anything like Pyro is going to have an absolute field day here. It's also got Wood Blast for free colourless energy, 50 damage, 20 more damage for each grass energy attached to this Pokemon. It is Caldeo's secret sword, but on a grass Pokemon. But why would you do this? It does 110 for free grass energy. Well, Genesect does 100 for free grass energy, and has Red Signal, and does 20 to the bench, and has G-Booster. And you can use Chorus Machine to power it up. So, like a lot of grass Pokemon, you have the situation where when you've got grass Pokemon, you've got Genesect, and any grass Pokemon can be built up using Virizion. That's going to help you start off the game. But any grass Pokemon has essentially got to be better than Genesect. If it's not better than Genesect, there's no real point playing it, and I don't think Trevenant is better than Genesect. Now, there will come a time when Genesect has been rotated out, and Trevenant EX is probably still left in. But by that stage, Virizion EX will also have been rotated out, so nobody's going to want to play grass. Sorry about that. And the third one is Mega Aggron EX. And it's got an ability. It hasn't got an ability. And it's got 1 attack. Which is really, yeah. Megaton Slam. 2 metal, 2 colourless energy. 120 damage. Rubbish. But this is incredibly interesting. This is where it gets good. Flip a coin. If heads, you may flip a coin, you don't have to. If heads, this attack does 120 more damage. If tails, it does 20 damage to each of your benched Pokemon. Now, you would obviously play this with something like a Mr. Mime or a Mountain Ring to block bench damage. 240 damage on a heads, 120 on a tails. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking. Now, it is a Mega, and I haven't seen a Spirit Link. However, it is coming in Primal Clash, and so far we've seen the Spirit Links are for Mega EXs which come from a set, rather than as promos. Think Diancie and Metagross as ones which are coming from as promos that aren't getting the Spirit Link. This with a Spirit Link could be interesting. Now think about the test I just told you about for Trevenant. Now we're talking, is it better than the metal type attackers? And really here, we're looking at Dialga, 150, add a muscle band to do 170, KOs a lot of EXs. And Aegislash only does about 100 for free energy, but has the added bonus of blocking any attacks or damage from attacks, etc. from, or I think anything from an attack, if there is a special energy attached to it. Now this is pretty gosh darn interesting, because what we see here is essentially, now this is going to depend on whether there's a Spirit Link. If there's a Spirit Link, I really like this card. You put it in there as a 1-1 line or a 2-2 line, and essentially this is my, I have nothing to kill you with, go Aggron, go. I still prefer Dialga as an everyday attacker because you don't have to mega that bad boy up. And it can do 170, but some things have 180 HP, which means Dialga doesn't get the job done, at least not in one hit. We've also got Mega EXs, and again, Aggron isn't going to do the thing. Plus, of course, if you come across a Pyroar deck, for instance, you're not going to be able to KO it with Dialga, and you're not going to be able to KO it with Aegislash. Mega Aggron EX you can. Now, you can KO a Pyroar using a Cobalion, but the thing about Cobalion is that it only does 100 damage. It goes through the ability, but it only does 100 damage. So if you're using Cobalion, you're going to need a muscle band to get the KO. Not so with Aggron. The other brilliant thing about Aggron is if you think about Pyroar, it maxes out at 110 damage. 60 damage, ups to 90 if you discard an energy, ups to 110 with a muscle band. Aggron has 240 HP, which means you have to do 120 damage or with a fire Pokemon to KO it. Now, of course, Pyroar will be doing that with a Silver Bangle, but a lot of Pyroar lists that I've seen lately are going Muscle Band rather than Silver Bangle because they're being run with Seismitoad, or because they're being run, and Pyroar needs to be able to get the KOs on non-EXs, especially Stage 1s, so Muscle Band really helps there. I'm not saying this is going to be amazing, but I'm saying it's better against Pyroar. Yeah, they can still one-hit KO, but it takes a lot more to do so. And a lot of the Pyroar lists I've been seeing, and Pyroar's seeing a drop in play anyway, but a lot of the Pyroar lists I'm seeing are actually starting to drop this out entirely. At Silver Bangle there, going to Muscle Band. So Mega Aggron EX is hardly some kind of world beater, but it's pretty interesting. Now, one very interesting piece of news this week, and this was pointed out on the Facebook group Verbank City Gym. No, it wasn't. It was in a 6 Prizes article I read. I do apologise. Pokemon League Challenges. If you go on the Pokemon League Challenge on the official Pokemon website, there's an information page for that type of tournament. What you find is it lists prizes. First place, a promo card. Second place, a promo card. Third place, a promo card. Fourth place, a promo card. No championship points have been listed. Now, this is for 2015 League Challenges. Now, we've already had League Challenges this tournament, and I know for a fact that they are rewarding points, because I got a whopping 10 points for the Nottingham League Challenge, where I managed to make top 4. I think I got 4th place in the end, playing Seismitoad Garbodor. So, this is going to create maybe a weird situation where League Challenges early in the season do award championship points, and League Challenges later in the season don't. Now, this does make some sense, of course. They are reducing the requirement to 300 from 500, so I suppose it would make a little bit of sense. So what they would also do is try and make you get your points from states, regionals and cities, as well as nationals, basically saying, we're making it easier, but go and get your points from real tournaments. League Challenges are a little bit too local. Now, this is going to be kind of like how Battle Roads ended up a while back. Battle Roads, these predated League Challenges. And the thing about Battle Roads was that it got to a point where they weren't really worth anything. Nobody wanted to go, and I went to Battle Roads. I had like 5 Masters, I think, at one point. No one's going to travel for a League Challenge if there's no championship points available. People will continue to go to their local League Challenges to play for fun, but I don't think anyone's turning up to these League Challenges with no championship points available, or at least they're not travelling for them. It also creates this weird situation where if you've gone to League Challenges early in the season, you are quids in. But if you go to League Challenges later in the season, you can do just as well in the exact same venue with the exact same turnout even, and you're not getting championship points. Next season it's not going to be a problem. This season I can see a little bit of a disparity here in that early on, points, later on, no points. No confirmation if points have been taken away, whether this only applies next year, etc. But the way it certainly looks from looking at the website at the moment is, although they have been giving away points from League Challenges, they are going to stop doing so, presumably quite soon. If you're in the UK, by the way, what that means is get points from regionals and cities, because if you need 20 more points at the end of the year, there ain't going to be any tournaments around to get them, from which to get them. And the last piece of news, I'm going to do a bit of shaming here. Trollandtoad.com. $9.99 for a Don fan. That's ridiculous. $10 for a Don fan. It's an uncommon, and it's not an old uncommon or a particularly rare uncommon. It's an uncommon from the previous set. Not it's from no, it's not. It's from Plasma Storm. Sorry, so it's quite an old Don fan. It's been out for a few sets now, but even so. Now, also, I don't necessarily blame them. What happens with Troll and Toad, like a lot of these card game websites, is they put cards up. If they sell out quickly, they raise the price. If they keep selling out quickly, they keep raising the price. Hence a $10 Don fan. If you don't need Don fans, stop going and buying every Don fan on a website. Because essentially now, imagine a new player. They go along to a place like Troll and Toad, and they want to get a nice, cheap competitive deck. Don Fan is a cheap competitive deck. You need some outrages. Well, they've been out for ages. They've been reprinted like 17 times. Don Fan, well, that's an uncommon. Robo Substitute is a trainer from the later set, and you can maybe Sigilif, which you can pick up. It was even released in a promo set with a couple of packs. Oh, sorry, a Dusknoir and a pack for like £8 in the UK. It's a very cheap deck to build. I don't like the fact that Troll and Toad are putting $10 for a Don fan. It's utterly ridiculous. But similarly, if you're one of those idiots that goes online and just tries to buy out every good playable card, I apologise for calling you idiots. I don't want to fall out with you. But essentially what you're doing is saying, I'm going to buy up all of these cards really, really cheaply, even though I don't need them, so that newer competitive players or competitive players that don't have the money can't do that. Now, what I do like, there's a UK site called Chaos Cards, and that limits you to buying 4 per card per transaction, deliberately to stop people doing this. Now, I don't know that people have been buying up Don fans on Troll and Toad, but I've heard of that kind of stuff before, and I don't like it. And then someone's always going to do it, so I suppose if it's going to be someone, it might as well be someone who listens to PTCG radio, because I find they're a better class of people. But honestly, ladies and gentlemen, don't. It just ruins it. It's kind of selfish behaviour that ruins it for other people. And as for Troll and Toad, I'm out on that. That's just utterly ridiculous. It's an uncommon. Get over yourself. I do have a playset of Don fans, however. They were given to me by a friend for free, so I suppose she's just done herself out of $40. Brilliant. Now, the last piece of news for this week, a lovely chap called Joe Bernard. Now, he lent me 2 head ringers this past weekend for my tournament, and I'm going to give him a shout out. Him and my, again, a decent friend of mine, Jack Old, lovely people, their new YouTube channel, Omnipoke. It's a relatively new channel, and essentially it's going to be doing booster box openings, deck analysis, or booster openings, breakdowns, tournament reports, TTCGO battles, as well as some Pokémon Showdown occasionally. I haven't checked out this YouTube channel yet. I can't tell you it's amazing, but I can tell you that Joe Bernard is a lovely, knowledgeable player who is also a very good player and a lovely chap, and Jack Old fits that description very nicely as well. I think they are 2 people that are very well suited to running a YouTube channel. Now, I must stress, go check out PTCG Radio on YouTube before you go and check out Omnipoke. But when you've watched all the PTCG radio videos, you're going to need something to watch on YouTube, something to while away those hours until I post new videos or new podcasts. Get yourself over to Omnipoke, OMNIPOKE. Search for it on YouTube. You know how YouTube works. Go and check it out. I think it's going to be pretty good. I was not paid for this advert, but I am going to use it as an excuse to make Joe lend me whatever cards I need in the future, which is completely redundant given that he already does. So speaking of my tournament this past weekend, I went out to Manchester Regionals, and I shouldn't have gone because I moved house this past weekend. Thursday evening, moving house. Friday evening, moving house. Sunday, finishing moving house and cleaning. Saturday, Pokémon tournament. Shouldn't have turned up, but I did. 7-round tournament, 96 Masters, which is 5 more than we had in Newport the previous weekend, and I played Seismitoad, Garbodor, Hammers. Now, my list, a few games in, it was testing brilliantly online, A few games in, I realised I'd made mistakes. I was playing Hypnotoxic Laser, but I wasn't playing Verbank City Gym. That was a mistake. I didn't have a counter stadium for things like Fighting Stadium, and I also didn't do enough damage, which is a problem. 70, 80 HP Pokemon like Horlichur and Fampi, I couldn't one-hit KO even with a Muscle Band Laser because I didn't have the Verbank. That was a shame. I also played Crushing Hammer, and I am not exaggerating when I say I flipped over Crushing Hammer and Hypnotoxic Laser about 25 to 30% over the 6 rounds that I played. I dropped before round 7. I wasn't doing very well. 3-3 I finished. But that's my own fault. I played a flippy deck. I can't complain about coin flips when I play a flippy deck. That is a risk, I assume, but I shouldn't have played Crushing Hammer. I also played Lissandra's trump card instead of VS Seeker, which absolutely helped me out in one game out of about 18 and was useless the rest. I didn't like it very much. What I am going to do, now my YouTube channel's been dark because of the moving. I might have mentioned once or twice that I moved house this weekend. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a deck breakdown of the list I should have played. Not the list I actually did play, but I've made some changes to the list. I've made a better Seismitoad, Garbodor, Hammers list. That is going to be the next deck breakdown I do on my YouTube channel, the next video I do. So if you're listening to this on Thursday, it's probably going up maybe Saturday, maybe Sunday, maybe Monday. It'll definitely be up by Monday at the latest. And if you're listening to this on YouTube, just look out for it. It's going to be coming up very soon. And if you're listening more than a few days in the future, it will already be up there. Check it out. I think it's pretty good. I mean, finish the podcast, but then go check out this video. And the basic premise of the deck is simple. You've got Seismitoad to lock trainers, Garbodor to lock abilities, Hypnotoxic Laser to put them to sleep, to poison them and to just generally slow them down, and then Crushing Hammer and Enhanced Hammer to take away all of their energy. Now the only other Pokemon I played were 2 Reshiram to help me against Rizzy and Genesect, although to be perfectly honest, ladies and gentlemen, it didn't help me against Rizzy and Genesect all that much. In the 2 games I played, I didn't have great luck against Rizzy and Genesect, but you know, I could sit and moan about not having luck against Rizzy and Genesect, but I remind you, I'm playing Seismitoad when Rizzy and Genesect is very much a thing, so I can't really moan about bad draws against Rizzy and Genesect, because it's a deck that I have no right to assume I'm going to beat. Now, I could have played the Charizard that does 60 for free energy, but the problem with that is, even with a Muscle Band, you're not getting the one-hit KO. Now, it does help in that you can, use, even if you use something like, if you use Quaking Punch to block trainers turn 1, put 10 damage on the Virizion, then you can go ahead and use Charizard and get the KO, but it's awkward. And then your opponent's just going to G-booster it anyway, probably, which is sad. So I'm going to tell you about my games, but I'm not going to tell you much about the games. I'll tell you about a few little plays here and there. What I'm going to try and do is talk about deck interactions, cards and stuff like that. So although it's going to be a tournament report, I'm going to be looking more at individual decks and cards than I am really at how I did. So round 1 I'm playing a lovely chap who's playing Fighting Dusknoir, and I won 2-1. I had to scoop one get. Was it 2-0? No, I won 2-1. One of my games didn't. No, I think it was 2-0. This is probably not very compelling radio, is it? I think I won 2-0, although they were both very, very close. And essentially, what happened was, game 1 I had both my Trubbish prized, but luckily I managed to block his trainer, so he had to manually draw into Dusknoir, and he failed to do so. No, it was 2-1, because game 2 he got Dusknoir up and running and absolutely destroyed me. And then game 3, I got an early Garbodor, and he couldn't use Dusknoir, and that was about it. Now, there's 2 things that really come out of this game. Point number 1, Dusknoir is a beast. Ollie Barnett has seen moderate success the last 2 weeks playing Eviltown Dusknoir. Dusknoir turns matchups in your favour. It means that you're not wasting any damage. And with Fighting and with Eviltown, that's really, really good. You imagine a Landorus hitting the active for 70 with a Muscle Band and a Strong Energy, and that could even go up to 90 if you put a Fighting Stadium, and 30 to the bench. It's essentially hitting for 100 or 120 for a single energy on turn 1 of the game, and then you can move it around wherever you like. You can ensure that you only do the maximum amount of damage that you minimum amount of damage you need to detect a KO, whilst also making, limiting your opponent's max potions. If you spread your damage among all your opponent's Pokemon, they're not going to be able to max potion more than 1/6 of the damage away, and that is very, very useful indeed. Not to mention the fact you can take prizes mid-turn, and even, not take any of your prizes, so you end up taking 6 prizes at once to really lessen the impact of an N, which has always been the problem with fighting decks. Fighting decks as a whole were quite well represented, and one of them was up near the top tables, but fighting decks as a whole didn't do particularly well. There's too many counters nowadays. Donphan really preys on decks which are pretty much entirely EX focused. Virizion Genesect has always had a good time because fighting can't really kill them quickly enough, and then G-Booster comes in and it's kind of lights out. And, Evil Tao's always had a pretty good time because of the resistance and the fact it can hit for big damage quite quickly. I still think fighting's good. It's a deck that really punishes slow starts. I had a slightly slow start game 2, and I had no chance here. I don't think fighting's amazing, but I think there's a good deck to be made, and Dustoir here, really, really strong. The other thing I'm noticing, and we'll go through this a little bit later when I wrap up exactly what did well in the tournament, but there is a lot less Garbodor than we are used to. Garbodor seems to be seeing a dip in play, and that makes something like Dustoir a very strong play indeed. Even if you just run a 1-1-1 line, or a 2-1-2 line, or a 2-2 line with 2 rare candy, or something along those lines. The brilliant thing about Dustoir is you don't have to get it out turn 2, turn 3. You can even take a few KOs and waste a bit of damage, but as long as you get a Dustoir by the end of the game, it could be useful. One tip with Dustoir, don't let it get Lysandre because it gets stuck active really blimmin' easily. So I'm 1-0. Round 2, I'm playing against Andreas Ciolin. I've now been to 3 tournaments that he is also at, and we have now played round 1, round 1, round 2. The series was tied at 1-1. And then he beat me today quite convincingly. Now, I did draw very badly in this game, but it's Seismitoad against Virizion Genesect. One thing that really impressed me with Andrea was his list. Essentially, he had an answer to everything. Now, I was playing Headringer. By the way, Headringer, love that card. Really enjoyed playing that card this weekend. Headringer is a Team Flare card that puts 20 damage. It means that your opponent's EX costs 1 more energy to attack. Really helped against the fighting deck, making him waste energy round 1, and it helped against Virizion Genesect sometimes. We'll get to more on that in a minute. Now, Jamming Net, the only person I know that played Jamming Net was my friend Charlie Powell, who played it in Seismitoad Pyroar, and although he did make top 8 with this, he did not speak highly of Jamming Net at all. He didn't speak of it as a happy fun time deck that he really enjoyed playing. So something to bear in mind there. But Headringer, I found it was really good. But he played Tool Retriever, Andrea did. So every time I played essentially he put me in an unbelievable position, which is I attach a Headringer. Well, I'm doing that on turn 1 of the game, so he's gonna get a Tool Retriever and pull it off. If I wait until I've trainer locked him to put a Headringer on, his deck is so consistent he's got a Muscle Band on and I can't put a Headringer on. Every time I put down a DCE, he had an Enhanced Hammer. As long as he wasn't trainer locked, he had a very good deck. He made Virizion Genesect that had answers to everything, and I think that's important to Virizion Genesect. It can play around. The Virizion Genesect I played later on, there was a really good play Jordan Pugh made at one point, which was essentially I'd Headringered the Virizion and the Genesect, and he essentially gave up a turn in order to bench the Virizion, energy switch an energy to it, and just bench Virizion, attach, gave up one Virizion in order to Emerald Slash with another. And if you're playing energy switch, you can do that even faster. Round 3, I'm playing against Evil Tao Garbodor, but it's not a fantastic Evil Tao list. Although I still got lucky. I didn't enjoy playing my deck, by the way. I didn't enjoy playing Seismitoad. I like aggressive decks, so it wasn't that much fun for me. There was a cool play. After winning game 1, he started Seismitoad, and then turn 2, he benches Evil Tao, attaches a second energy, he's got the Muscle Band on, he hits me for 100 on turn 2 of the game with Evil Tao, and I'm going to lose. But I'm able to put a Headringer on his Seismitoad, Lysandre it up, and kill it really, really slowly with my own Seismitoad, hitting it for 30 damage every turn, while I build up 2 Seismitoads on the bench, both of which can use Grenade Hammer, and I use them to finish off the game. I essentially was going to lose the prize trade, so I slowed the game down, built up a couple of Seismitoads to Grenade Hammer, and every time he tried putting it, because Seismitoad's got a retreat cost of 3 and he was trainer locked. He can't switch out, he has to retreat, he's got a retreat cost of 3. Headringer means he needs to put 3 energy on to attack, and every time he puts a DCE on, I'm there with an Enhanced Hammer to grab it off again. So that was useful. Evil Tal is good though. Although I did win, I won that on a cool little play game 2. I won game 1 because I essentially drew better. Game 2, I won because I had the clever Seismitoad play, but he started Seismitoad. He didn't voluntarily bench the Seismitoad, and I think that may well have had an impact. Round 4, I played Donphan as my good friend Mike Lamb, playing the Donphan list I gave him the night before, and to the person listening who gave me a Donphan list, I assure you the list I gave him was my own, and was in no way copied from yours. That would be very rude of me. And thank you to that listener for providing me with that Donphan list. It let me know I was on the right track. Although Donphan now, it's too cool, so I ain't playing it. But I will one day. I've got all the cards. No, that's a lie. But I've got a lot of the cards I need now. More than I did. And Donphan's amazing. Now, as it happens, we have a very long Game 1, which ends after 40 minutes, and we can't be bothered, so we just call the winner of Game 1 the winner. And as it goes through, I have a very slow start this game. And I can't really train a lot. Because the problem is, if you're Seismitoad against Donphan, as soon as they've got, like, Silver Bangle Fighting Stadium, remember I didn't play any counter stadiums, which is my own fault. As soon as he gets a... Because I basically started Garbodor and couldn't get it at the active. And as soon as he gets a faster start than me, he's got Muscle Bands, and he's got Silver Bangles down, and he's got Fighting Stadium down. He's two-hitting my Seismitoad easily. If he's got a couple of Donphans with the tools attached, I'm screwed at this point. There's nothing I'm not gonna win with Seismitoad. So what I do is I put up the outrages. I put up my 2 Reshiram, and we play a very long game where essentially he can, and it's really hard for Donphan. This is a good tip if you're playing against Donphan. Donphan struggles to KO high HP non-EXs. Things like Reshiram, things like Kyurem, the Plasma one. With a Muscle Band and a Strong Energy, it does 60 to them. Can't use Silver Bangle, can't use Fighting Stadium. With a Strong Energy and a Muscle Band, it only does 60, which doesn't 2-hit KO a Reshiram. Horlicher can't hit it. Something outrageous can, but it is a very useful tactic, and that's what I did. And then I essentially, managed to take a few prizes, and we got it down very, very late in the game. But the only reason, now I could have won earlier with more Lysandra, but I'm playing one Lysandra, and I'm playing Lysandra's trump card, and that's not good because I have to use Lysandra's trump card to get Lysandra in the deck. Then I have to draw into the Lysandra, and the chances are I'm not going to draw into it. I'm going to have to play a support to draw into it. So it's like 3 supporters to use a second Lysandra. That's why I should have been playing VS Seeker. That's a problem. As it happens, I went on a misplay. We were using very small see-through dice. Mike's not mine. And he failed to notice a Reshiram on my bench of 120 damage. Lysandra's up a Seismitoad. He's going to win next turn, but I've got a Floatstone to retreat it, and I'm able to get the win. It wasn't a very legitimate win. I wasn't playing enough Lysandra, I wasn't playing any VS Seeker, I wasn't playing Burbank City Gym. It made my Donphan matchup very weak, and I'm not going to moan about my draws very much in this tournament, because the fact of the matter is, the list I played was subpar. Against Donphan, and here's how you basically beat Donphan. High HP, non-EXs, lots of Lysandra. That's how you beat Donphan. You pull up the Donphan and kill them, so you ignore the Robo Substitute, and you put up high HP, non-EXs to basically, because that's what Donphan struggles to KO. And this is why Donphan has such a good matchup now with stuff like Robo Substitute against and Horlicher against something like Seismitoad. By the way, if you're playing against Seismitoad with Donphan, get Robo Substitutes down as early as you can, use Horlicher aggressively, and if you got like 3 Horlicher, you'll almost certainly win the game. Just a little tip there. Robo Substitute, Horlicher, the more of them you play, the more likely you are to beat Seismitoad. I used to consider, before this set, I would say, good Donphan player, good Seismitoad player, good list, I'd give it to the Seismitoad player. I wouldn't anymore, and I've played this matchup a lot, and I've got a bunch of these videos on my YouTube channel. As far as I'm concerned, ladies and gentlemen, Donphan is now a better deck than Seismitoad, and it should get the victory. So yeah, that's essentially how you beat Donphan. Lots of Lysandra to pull up the Donphan, high HP, non-EXs, that's what you want to be doing here. And that was my last win of the game. I lost to Virizion Genesect against Jordan Pugh, and there's very little to say about this. It went similarly to before. I didn't draw well, but then again, Game 1 I lost, and then Game 2... I would have been able to Grenade Hammer the turn before he Emerald Slashes. I get 2 prizes, he Emerald Slashes, and then I get another Grenade Hammer. He's got a half-dead Virizion. I'm 2 prizes up. And I've got Reshirams on the bench with 60 damage, which means Muscle Band, DC they're hitting for 100. But I didn't. I misattached the energy. That's my own stupid fault. But I don't deserve to beat Virizion Genesect. My list, like I say, wasn't good enough. The list I'm going to put on my YouTube channel is a much better list. I'd feel a lot better taking to a tournament. And then I lost to Scott Burgess's Donphan before I dropped at 3-3. And the Donphan matchup again. Scott, as I've mentioned in previous podcasts, is an exceptional player. He's the reigning UK national champion. He got 50 points from Worlds last year. I think he made top 32, and he came second at last week's regionals. He is an exceptional player in every sense of the word. There is an argument, and I've heard people that are not me say this, that he may be the best player in the UK at the moment, because he just doesn't make mistakes. He's such a good player. And I've beaten him occasionally, so, props to me. But in reality, he did everything right. He had Haulager, he had Robo Substitute. Game 1, he got a better start and he just destroyed me. Game 2, I was able to start off with Seismitoad, get a bit of damage done with Seismitoad, and then do my Outrageous plan like I tried against Mike, and it paid off and I managed to win. Not an unwinnable matchup, even with my subpar list, but it took a lot to win. I don't like draws. I knew I wasn't going to win. I knew it was going to end up being a draw, and I knew I was only going to drop if it was a draw anyway. So what I suggested to Scott was that we played a speed round. Speed round being, let's play this game as fast as we possibly can. There's going to be a winner. Now, if the game went to time, I was going to give it to Scott, purely because if I didn't win that game, I was dropping from the tournament. So I might as well give Scott a win rather than beating him and dropping, or having a tie and then dropping. But I thought having a speed round, and reality is, in a speed round, I got destroyed. It wasn't even close. And the reason is, like I say, Donphan's a better deck. I had to think a lot with a Seismitoad deck, and playing a speed round, I didn't think enough. But truth be told, I think if we'd have played at a slower pace, I still would have lost. My deck was subpar, and Donphan beat Seismitoad nowadays. And Donphan, I think, is the deck to beat at the moment. It's such a good deck. Robo Substitute is so good. Making your opponent waste an attack or a Lysandre or something like that is amazing. And you've also got Haulager. And Haulager, I was chatting with Luke Saban about this at the tournament, and he was making the point to me that he thinks we're going to look back on Haulager in a format or two's time and just, after it's rotated out, and just go, that card's broken. A basic with free retreat that hits a 60 for 1 energy and goes through resistance, and can use strong energy and fighting stadium, muscle band, silver bangle. It can hit for 110 on turn 1. No, that's not actually right, is it? It can hit for 130 against an EX for 1 energy on first turn of the game. We're assuming 60 plus 20 for fighting energy, plus 20 for fighting stadium, brings it up to 100 plus 30 for silver bangle. It only hits EXs, but it's just ludicrous, and it gives you a free retreater. It's utterly crazy. The other thing which I think makes Donphan a better deck than it used to be, although not many people I saw playing this, or at least against me this weekend, was Wobbuffet, which is another, and I really like this from the last couple sets. Pokemon are starting to give us non-EXs that are amazing. Now, Donphan was Plasma Storm, so that's just become good, but things like Haulager and Wobbuffet, they're amazing. Wobbuffet, now, it's not a good attacker on its own right, although its ability is awesome. You put that against something like Vrizzy and Genesect, no red signal. You put it against the metal deck, no Bronzong. I mean, it's just fantastic. But also, it's a good finishing attack. Essentially, when Wobbuffet does 10 damage, plus 10 for each energy attached to, each damage on the defending Pokemon. So if the defending Pokemon's got 60 damage on, Wobbuffet hits for 70. And then you can put a Muscle Band, Silver Bangle, etc. on that to do more damage. Now, you need Psychic Energy, and not every deck's playing it, but if something like a Gengar hit and run deck with Wobbuffet, Gengar hits for 70, probably 70 because you won't have Burbank City Gym out. End of their turn, it goes up to 80. Wobbuffet comes in and hits for 90, and that's a KO on most EXs. Gengar's hitting for 60. By the time it comes back around to you, they've taken 20 for poison. This is without a Muscle Band on Gengar or a Muscle Band on Wobbuffet. They've got 80 damage coming into you. Wobbuffet hits for 90. That's 170 in 2 turns. And if you finish them with Wobbuffet, Wobbuffet's active at the end of your turn, and they can't use any abilities on non-psychic Pokemon. So, at this stage, I think it's probably a good idea to kind of, I'm going to give you my main thoughts in a minute, but what we should do first of all is just have a look at the top 8, quite frankly. It was very interesting, the top 8, this particular tournament, and I thank you to a bunch of people, Oliver Barnett and Heather Quinn and Matt Blower, for helping me kind of sort this out. I chucked it out over Facebook. So after Swiss, the seedings are Charlie Powell, the first seed, with Pyroar Seismitoad. The second seed was Reese Williams with Seismitoad Garbodor. Third seed was Brian Peach with Donphan. Fourth seed was James Weirden with Virizion Genesect. Fifth seed Jordan Pugh with Virizion Genesect. Sixth seed Danielle Harris with Donphan Trevenant. Seventh seed Emmanuel De Silva with Seismitoad Garbodor. And the eighth seed was Sammy Sakoon with Eviltel Garbodor. So essentially what we're seeing there is 3 Seismitoad, one of which with Pyroar, 2 Virizion Genesect, 2 Donphan and an Eviltal. That's pretty darn good. Going into top 4, we've got Sammy Sakoon's Eviltal Garbodor, Danielle's Donphan Trevenant, James Weirden's Virizion Genesect, and Emmanuel's Seismitoad Garbodor. And in the top 2, Sammy Sakoon's Eviltal Garbodor beat Emmanuel's Seismitoad. So they were the results, and congratulations to all of those people for making top 8, and especially to Sammy Sakoon for winning the regional and getting himself, halfway to a world's invite. Congratulations to all of those people. But this raises an interesting point, in that as far as I'm concerned, there's basically 3 main decks plus 1. Now, I could be proven wrong. As far as I'm concerned, we've got Eviltal, Virizion Genesect, Donphan. And there's not really very much to say about any of those decks, because we've had these decks for ages now. They're still good, and they will continue to be good. Eviltal is as good as it ever was, and I had an interesting chat with a couple of Eviltal players at the weekend. And what they were basically saying to me was, look at the way the deck is played now. Look at the reliance on Baby Eviltal, again, going back to my point of high HP, non-EXs, basics, with decent attacks. Something like an Outrager or a Wobbuffet or a Hall... No, Hallage doesn't really count, because he's only got 70 HP. But 130 HP resistance to fighting, a real pain to KO if you're playing as Donphan. And one of what these people said to me was, would you even want Dark Patch anymore? And I thought that was a really interesting question. The way it's played, with the reliance on Y-Cyclone and preserving the double colourless energy, using Baby Eviltal to set up, using Seismitoad to slow the game down by locking trainers, using Garbodor to slow the game down, and then saying, would you even play Dark Patch? And I think it's an excellent point these people make. I'm not sure I would play Dark Patch in Eviltal now, even if it was legal, which is an utterly crazy thought when you consider how dominant Dark Patch was over the format for a good couple of years. So Eviltal, still strong. Donphan, still strong. I've been through that. More on that in a second, though. And Virizion Genesect, it's not going away. It's just not. It's amazing. Yeah, Headring is a pain, but Tool Retriever gets around it. And to be honest, if you just play Energy Switch, all you need to do is play Virizion Energy Switch Energy, boom, you've got an Emerald Slash off. Headringer is not going to stop a really good Virizion Genesect player. Please don't think this is a be-all and end-all. I love Headringer, I think it's a really fun card. It ain't going to stop a good Virizion Genesect player. Let's be very clear about that before we start. So, Seismitoad I'm putting as the 4th deck. And I know it took 3 spaces in the top card, and I know it came second. But honestly, I just don't buy it. The damage output is too low. And all you need is a bunch of Eviltal, which beat Seismitoad, a bunch of Virizion, which beat Seismitoad, and a bunch of good Donphan players, which beat Seismitoad. And here's my main problem with Seismitoad. I consider it to have an unfavourable matchup against all 3 of what I consider to be the top decks. Now, when I say unfavourable matchup, what I'm saying is, if you take 2 equally skilled players with equally good deck lists, I think Seismitoad would lose to all 3 others. I think good Eviltal player, good Seismitoad player, both were good lists, Eviltal wins. Same with Virizion Genesect. Same with Donphan, as I've explained. Donphan beat Seismitoad using Hawlucha and Robo Substitute, and I know they can be trainer locked, but you've got at least one turn to get 1 or 2 of them down. By the way, if you're ever trainer locked against Donphan, if you're starting off against Seismitoad, what you want to do, turn 1, Corinna for Donphan and Corinna for Hawlucha and Robo Substitute. That's how you do it. I suppose you might want to get a Phanpy, but hopefully you've already got a Phanpy and Donphan and all that. And then Virizion Genesect just runs through Seismitoad really quickly. It's not even really fair. And as I've said, even Headring is not a huge problem, because essentially, even if you're like, but they're going to be trainer locked, so they can't just play down a Virizion Energy Switch Energy. Brilliant, you're doing 30 damage if you've got a Muscle Band. Sooner or later, you're going to need to Grenade Hammer to take a KO. at which point they're there. That you're giving them turn after turn to get energy on the board, and that's what Virizion Genesect needs. What you cannot do with Seismitoad against Virizion Genesect is just sit there and Quaking Hammer, because that gives them time to get energy on the board, and you will not win if they get energy on the board. The other thing is, if they just go, energy onto Genesect, then next turn energy Colress Machine, and I know Colress Machine, but if they break the train lock at any point, then they're just going to go aggro Genesect and kill you anyway. So I don't buy Seismitoad as a contender. I think as the format shakes out, it's going to become weaker. I could be wrong, but I think as the format shakes out, it's going to become weaker. It's got Enhanced Hammer now, but I don't think that really makes the difference. Maybe a Seismitoad Drifblim deck could be good, but it's so easily played around by just not playing Special Energy. So I'm not sure that I buy this. And that's as far as I'm concerned the top decks. Now, a couple of interesting points before we leave today. Donphan in the mirror Trevenant wins. And I say this because Danielle, who made top 4 with Donphan in this tournament, who I believe was the last Donphan standing, she played it with Trevenant. And I saw a mirror she played. Well, in round 7 or round 6, one of the rounds where I was done fairly early, so it must have been round 7. I went off to get a Burger King, came back, and I watched a bit of Jake's game against Danielle. And Jake's a lovely chap, and he's a very good player. But it was obvious watching the game that Donphan Trevenant beats Donphan Robo Substitute Outrageous. Trevenant stops them playing trainers, and then, Donphan hits into Trevenant, and Donphan is really slowed down. You don't have your muscle bands. You can't play Enhanced Hammer if you choose to play that. You can't play Robo Substitute. And of course, Trevenant fits into that category I've been telling you about, which is high HP, non-EXs. It's a Stage 1, not a basic, but it still totally counts. And yes, Danielle was a top 4. Unfortunately, the other Donphan player, Brian Peach, unfortunately didn't make it to the top 4. I think Donphan Trevenant could be making a comeback, and I think it is potentially a deck to beat. So, look out for that, quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen. Yveltal, I think, is the best deck in the format. I genuinely believe that. I've already explained how it beats Seismitoad. We've always known that it's pretty good against something like Virizion Genesect, especially if you want to just play a Spiritomb because they can't G-boost. But even if you don't play a Spiritomb, Baby Yveltal's really good. They're going to need to play... And by the way, if you're playing Virizion Genesect, you've got to play Deoxys now. There's too many 130 HP Pokemon. The Outrage, Reshiram, Donphan, all of that. You need to have a Deoxys to do 130 damage. But I still think Yveltal's going to end up beating you. Especially if I play it with Garbodor and Lasers come back online. It's just, I think it's the best deck in the format. The Metal deck, Bronzong, Dialga, Edgeslash, did see some play this past weekend, did not really see any success. I know Charles Barton played it, and he's a very good player, and he got to a respectable record, but I don't believe, I could be wrong about this, he definitely didn't make top 8, I don't believe he made top 16. There's too many problems. It loses to Seismitoad Garbodor pretty hard. It loses to Pyro if anybody's playing that. It's not particularly great against Virizion Genesect, although that really depends on who gets the fastest start. And Yveltal Garbodor is probably going to beat it as well, unless you can keep drawing into startling Megaphones to turn off the Garbodor. I just don't see it well positioned. It'll beat a lot of decks. I just don't think it beats the top 4. And that if it doesn't beat those top 4 decks, it's essentially, why are you playing this deck? And the very last thing I want to tell you about is Reese Williams' deck. Reese Williams? I think it's Williams. Sorry, Reese, if I've got your name wrong. I believe it's Reese Williams. He played a Seismitoad deck, and he was describing his deck to me at the end of Swiss, and I don't think he was lying. I don't see why he would, but we were chatting before Top Cut, and he was telling me about his deck, and he played 4 DCE. And he played 4 Seismitoad and a 2-2 Garbodor line. And that was it. That was all the Pokemon and energy he played. 2-2 Garbodor, 4 Seismitoad, 4 DCE, 48 trainers. And only 8 of those were draw supporters. And he played it with all the disrupting cards you want. There were Lysandras, there were VS Seekers, Roller Skates, Bicycle, Crushing Hammer, Enhanced Hammer, lots of Lasers, lots of Burbank City Gym. And he went through as like the second seed, I believe. He didn't make it through top 8, unfortunately. But this was a really... And again, I might do a deck breakdown of this if I can get a list from him if he's willing to share. And there's no reason why he needs to. Maybe I'll make my own list. It seems like a deck I could probably make. I mean, that is a risky deck. Because there's so many decks. So if they get, something like a Deoxys gets set up, boom, it's going to be beating Seismitoad. Although it does actually rely on special energy, which you've got Enhanced Hammer and Crushing Hammer. But, it's going to lose to Virizion Genesect. And a fast Evil Tail hitting for a lot of damage could well end up, beating that by getting set up. It just seems like a really strange way to run the deck. But I'm telling you, he finished with a hell of a record after 7 rounds of Swiss in a 100-person tournament, good as, near as damn it. So, whatever he did right, quite frankly. It's a very interesting deck, something you may want to have a go with. It seems really dodgy. I mean, if you have to get rid of DCEs, you're not going to be recovering them back. If your opponent plays, 3 or 4 Xerosic, you ain't winning that game. But at the end of the day, it clearly worked for him, and it seems like a much more fun version of my Seismitoad deck, put it that way. Now, the other thing I'll say, Charlie Powell also top cut with Seismitoad Pyroar, and Emmanuel got second of a more traditional Seismitoad list, one more like my own. So maybe it takes an unusual list of Seismitoad to do well. Having said that, Emmanuel went and got second with a more standard list, so I don't know. What I do know is we're 51 minutes in, and I think that's enough for this week. As always, ladies and gentlemen, look after yourselves till next week. Thank you very much for listening. Do make sure you tweet me at the Wassy, email me at ptcgradio@hotmail.co.uk, check out my YouTube channel. That deck breakdown is going up soon, and I'm looking to do deck breakdowns of Evil Tau Dust Noir and a couple of other decks in the near future, so keep an eye out on that. Now that I've got proper, actually good internet, I'm no longer with TalkTalk, it's a wonderful day. If you're in the UK and you're considering going internet with TalkTalk, just don't. Just don't. Just my opinion, of course. But don't, they're ridiculous, they're rubbish. So I'm going to be getting more videos up in the near future. Thank you very much for listening, as always. My name's Ross, and you've been listening to PTCG Radio.